Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Some Drivel, a series of podcasts exploring tangents with awesome humans. And speaking of awesome humans, helping myself with my own segue, I am honored to be joined by Josh Chiodo from Indieformer, a really dynamic, interesting collection of indie game discoverability, a newsletter, a behind the scenes look. It's a really varied and interesting publication. And Josh, thrilled to have you here today talking to me about everything that you've been working on. How are we doing? Speaking to you from Australia, right?
I know, right? All across the world. That's what the internet is good at, isn't it? It's about connecting people across, I mean, essentially different time zones. You're in the middle of the day. I'm in the future. Nothing much happens. It gets dark and it's going to get light again. So,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, what you're going through is what I've already been through. So
That is way
yeah.
too profound for this podcast. That feels like you should have like a pipe and a smoking jacket for that. That's great. But yeah, so listen, I want to dive straight in because we discovered your. It was actually on Threads. We discovered your publication, Indieformer, and it became a sort of very quick snowball for us in terms of us wanting to dive in and check out what it was that you're working on. Just for
Mm.
anyone that isn't familiar, can you give folks listening the cliff notes of what Indieformer is, and maybe just speak to a little bit to its origin story?
Yeah, so in very, very short, it's search less, play more. That's the kind of tagline that we go with because that's what the purpose is. It's for you to like not have to worry about this like monumental mountain of games that's released each month, to search through them to try and find something new. I mean, we've all been there. Like we're all like, oh, I want something new to play, but I don't know what to play. I'll go and search through stuff, and then you're like, is this good? Is this bad? I got no, and then you end up giving up, and you just stick with League of Legends or something. So, yeah, the origin story of this, it's what year was 2025? It came 2020, no, 2014. When my mate came to me and was like, "Hey, I've been playing all these indie games. You know how to do film and TV and editing and stuff." And I've played heaps of games myself. And he's like, "Let's start up a YouTube channel. We know how to do it. You can edit it. You've got the equipment, and I'll write it, and then we can make best of the months or reviews or whatever."
Nice.
We're like 15. No, no, not 15. What is it? 11 years ago. 18, 19, something like that.
Mm.
So I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it. So it started off as videos, and that was videos for the good couple of years there to begin with until 2016, 2017. And then we're going through university. We're like, okay, we need to start getting jobs and stuff. So we kind of split, don't play as much games anymore. We're like, all right, let's kind of put this on the back burner. Let's pause it. And then he ended up moving on, doing his own thing. And then I brought it back myself in like 2018. Did videos myself again. And then trying to balance that with full-time work. Like I think each video used to take me something like 30 hours a week to make. And that's like research, animation, editing,
Mm.
voice recording. I'm like, I want to make sure they're good videos. Like I'm not just here to pump out nothing. So I was like, if I'm going to make it worth watching, I want to put the time into it. So I kept that up for a year. And then I was like, no, this is just too much. So stopped it again. And then big break until last year. I was just sitting at my desk at work and I was like, why didn't I think of just doing this as a newsletter? Like, why did it have to be videos? Why did it have to be
Right.
30 hours a week? Like, there's still a space for this curation. There's still like a well curated publication that looks good and
Mm.
isn't too frequent to kind of like bore you or get too much in your face. I was like, yes, I can still do this. So I just the next week I was like, okay, let's get something more modern together. Let's redo the branding. Let's pull it together. And so here we are. This is almost a year later now of the newsletter, in a different Indieformer in a different form.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, you mentioned about sustainability because I feel like that's often the great barrier to entry for creators, is they're
Mm.
balancing the logistics of the real world of their life while still being able to then push their creative endeavor forward. And you mentioned something as well that I thought was really interesting, which is this idea of, that after those couple of hiatuses, you kind of were very self-reflective. You looked at it and went, well, just do it. Let's just make the thing that I know that is missing, that there is a gap for. And I was
Yeah.
curious from your perspective in terms of mindset, how how do you maintain that enthusiasm for it? How do you kind of keep yourself pushing forward when I know I certainly face this in my own creative endeavor. Everything we're doing with
Mm.
Burly Bird is that it can be really tricky sometimes to know when to draw the line and realize that, like you did with the videos, that actually this might not be something that can be as all encompassing as I'd like it to be. So what is the thing that sort of keeps you pushing forward with it?
I think it's a combination of like I've had almost now a decade of experience having left school and like been in the creative industry. Like I work in film
Mm,
and TV, so and I know photography. Like I've done heaps of creative work before, and you get very good at kind of practicing when it's too much. Like
right.
when you have invested too much into something, or when you're investing too much into something, you're not seeing a return. And I think it's very key that return bit. Like
Mm,
everyone's like, you're an artist, you should just do it for the love of it. Like it's
right.
like, you know what? Yes, to a point. And if you are going to do it, make sure you've got your boundaries kind of in check because if you put too much time in, then it starts sucking away from other things.
Yeah. I start to
And when you
resent
do
the
put
thing that
that
you love
much
too, which is the
yeah, exactly. Like
horrible.
when you do put that much time in, you then have to start thinking about like, okay, if I'm putting this much time in, then I need to start seeing a return so I can actually spend the time on it, like
Mm,
financial or things are happening, like I'm getting opportunities. Like as much as we don't like to talk about that stuff, we still need to earn money, we still need to make a living, we still need
right.
to pay bills.
It's really important to acknowledge that because I know that for
Yeah.
myself, I very much started this with the same mindset of going, well, I know that this is the kind of thing I wish existed, so I'm going to go and make it for myself. I had the expertise,
Yeah.
the enthusiasm to do it, but I'm still, I'm not immune to checking my socials and the engagement stats and looking at the
Yeah.
website views and stuff. You can't help it because you want to know if there's anything connecting and if there is a potential for this to evolve and in a ideal world it becomes your full-time thing. It's something that then sustains you
Exactly.
in,
Like
in a
that's
real sense.
That's like the dream, right? Like you want this creative endeavor that you're starting on the side to kind of build and be this big thing, but you know that with scale also comes time and effort, and it kind of becomes like a scale of like, okay, am I going to do this? Is it going to work? And that's kind of where those videos were, and it's like I'm putting so much work in, and
Mm,
it's going okay, but if I have to put this much work in for it to go this slow, it's just not worth it for me at the
right.
moment when I can spend time in my career. So at the moment, I keep it going was like, okay, the newsletter is something that doesn't take me 30 hours to do a week. It's something that I can do alongside my job and I can keep it consistent. I've told people it's coming out middle of the month and at the end of the month, I've got that deadline because people expect it, I guess.
Mm,
But for myself, it's like there's games being released each month. I can't just like ignore that. It's going to happen. I'm going to do a review and then I keep going and going and going. So it's like a soft deadline on myself and
mm.
like I just said, the biggest part of it is it doesn't take 30 hours. It's manageable, it's doable. It's like, cool, I know I can wrap this together in about a week's worth spread out. So it might take me a few hours along the week and go, yep, done, easy, on to the next one. I mean, not easy, but like it's manageable.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah, it's
sustainable.
certainly more
That's
manageable relative to what you were doing prior, right? Like
well,
that was obviously
exactly.
a
Like and
massive
like
difference, you know.
exactly. It's like all I have to worry about is kind of this one medium of putting things together in writing versus writing a script, researching games, editing it together, color grading, filming myself, like just a whole host of other things you got to be across. And then you also need to plan for those. Like, okay, one night I'll film this, the next night I'll cut it together, the night I'll refine it, then I'll create clips, and then it just becomes this like very big. Like I would love to do it again for sure. Like if Indieformer ends up being like that, absolutely, I'll get the opportunity. But for sustainability to actually keep the project going, it's like in its purest form, what's the way that you can kind of get
Mm.
that creative idea out there whilst also still looking after yourself? Like, can I still have dinner with my partner? Can we still watch Netflix? Can I go to work? Can I get a gym workout in? Like, I've still got a
Absolutely.
life, and
Absolutely.
that's the biggest thing that I see. It's like creators kind of go all in on this thing to work, and then they realize all this work kind of is coming back with nothing, and it takes so much time, and there's so much competition out there. And so it's kind of just like, what's the minimum viable product, the MVP? I mean, a lot of people have heard of that if you work in marketing
Mm.
and in products. It's like, what's the minimum viable product you can get away with that gets that idea out there, so you can test the waters, you can get feedback, and you know where to put that time and effort.
Absolutely. And that's something too I think that's really key is that when you're talking about, that sort of horrible arc of enthusiasm to sustainability and those two things, but that often they don't necessarily match up. You can be as really
Yeah,
passionate about one thing as you want, but then the practicality then comes into play and then might put the brakes on something, which is where,
yeah,
it's knowing, I think, what the end result is. You talked about a return on it. I think for some people, I know that certainly this has been us for a while until this sort of got to where we are now. It was a
mm,
case of I liked knowing I had a creative outlet. Updating it regularly to a soft deadline to something I'd set myself then wasn't actually the getting something back wasn't the end result at that point. It was more just knowing that when I'm able, I can share my creativity and my art through whatever it is that I'm working on. I
Yeah.
think it's only when it then gets to a certain point where you're starting to engage community, you've obviously, like you said, you've had feedback gathered. That's when
Mhm.
you then have to then look a bit more honestly at it and go, okay, well, what ultimately is what am I actually shooting for here? What is the end result of all of this effort and enthusiasm that I'm putting in? And
Yeah.
given that, given all of those considerations and what you're now creating with the newsletter, I was curious actually what curation looks like for you with that. Like, what is there a process essentially that you put yourself through in order to select certain titles, or is it a fairly open door in terms of what is able to be featured in the content?
Yeah, so I've been honest about this. I've put it out there. Like, I don't play every game I recommend. That's like not the purpose. And it's also, again, coming back to sustainability. It's not possible for me to play every game enough.
That's not practical,
Yeah.
is it? That's
And
that's
no, it's
nonsense.
not. And that's not the point of Indieformer. The point is kind of to give you a selection of stuff to go and look at and do it yourself. Do your own research. Like that's before you buy a game, no matter who recommends it, you're always going to go read reviews, you're going to go and do a little maybe take a peek at the demo or watch gameplay. Like you're never just going to make it based off one piece of media, and I know that. Like I know the user journey. I've been there. I've researched games myself before I've bought them. So I know that I'm never going to be the end point for someone, but I might be the starting point, and that's kind of where
Right.
I want to be. I want to be like that discovery place. And so for curation, like I can literally tell you how I do it. It's nothing special, but it's more that it's consistent, and I'm the
Right.
consistency there. So the whole point of curation is that it's not just anybody making a recommendation, it's that I've made good recommendations in the past, or I'd hope anyway, and then I continue to make those good recommendations in the future so that it's me being the consistent point. And I will literally scroll through Steam DB and look at what's been released because that's the easiest and simplest way for me to get that
Mm.
information quickly. I'll pick on games that I think look interesting. I'll try and keep that rating above 70 to 80%. So anything above 70 or 80% rating, positive rating, I'll take a look at. And then what catches my eye, what is popular, what's got a high percentage rating. Like I said, I'll probably look through 40 to 100 game or 50 to 100 games for the month. I'll look into them. I'll read reviews. I'll go, cool. How many reviews have you got? What do they say? What does the trailer look like? What does your material look like? What's the feeling that I get from it? That's something you can't really put like a price on.
It's
It's
hard
like,
to
how do I
quantify, isn't it?
feel?
That, yeah.
It's like everything can be objective. Like, yes, I read reviews and stuff, but then at the end of the day, I'm going to look at like their websites. They have links to their social platforms. Like, how well rounded is this?
Mm.
How many reviews do you have? If it's like 4 reviews, it's like, okay, this is on as like, can I maybe get a key for this so I can actually review it myself? Because it's like everything looks positive, but then I don't know. There's not enough data. So I kind of get it to the point where I'm like, if it's in the newsletter, I've gone, yeah, I'd probably buy that.
Nice.
And
That's actually a
that's,
lot more thorough in terms of considerations than I was expecting. That's really interesting. Because you can very, I
yeah,
think it'd be very easy for these to sort of be like, you could take one or two of those metrics, the user score and perhaps its position on the pre-order chart, and suddenly that becomes the only reason why. But then I suppose
yeah,
the devil's advocate to that then becomes, well, the notion of it being already well pre-ordered means it's been discovered. This is about discoverability. It's about new things that are being missed. So that it's
yeah.
interesting actually that there's so much thought that goes into that process for you to actually select these titles.
I think, look, I'm going to say it's probably an over exaggeration from how many words I just said, but that kind of process per game probably takes me 4 to 5 minutes. Like it's not long. I'll read a couple of reviews, I'll check out their social links, I'll watch the trailer, and then I kind of go off a gut feeling like,
Nice.
should I be noting this down for later to revisit? Should I go, yes, that's 100% in? A lot of it comes down to that gut feeling, which I feel like is what curation eventually comes down to. It's like I've
Mm.
taken all these sources into play and I go, yep, that's making it. No, that's not. don't know, I'll come back to it later. I need more reviews, or I need to play it
That's
myself or
That's
whatever.
really interesting then, because I suppose when you factor in the amount of games you're looking at on average covering per month, yes, that process itself, like you said, might actually be distilled down to a few minutes in those key areas, but that's
Mm.
still several hours worth of work that you're putting in
Yeah.
just across those multiple titles. And I imagine there's a lot of things then you do come across that perhaps then don't meet that criteria. You're then having to kind of move on from and disregard. Uh,
Yeah, no, there's lots of great ideas out there, and then it's just execution. And it's going, cool. How are you executing this? And like, I'm no game developer, no professional, but I'm a creative at the end of the day. Like, I understand when you can tell when a lot of work has been put into something and
mhm.
when it's been done well. And a lot of that kind of just comes down to having played games before, having experience, and just knowing generally what a good game looks like. I mean, we've all played bad games, we've all played good games. And I think. Yeah, even though it's a few hours a week, it's like there's definitely a lot of games in there where sometimes I'll have like a list of 30, and I'm like, I can't put 30 in the newsletter. So now I'm going
Right.
to go back through all of these. I'm going to go, what is not making it in? And sometimes that's difficult because I don't want to miss out. I don't want people to miss out on a good game. So I'll always
Mm.
post a couple extra games in the Discord if I think they were worth it or they might be of value. But then it's like, I need like a good 10 to 12 list at most here because I don't want to also, because I got a newsletter at the end of the day. It's like meant to be curated, small list that you can kind of look through. And I don't want it to be every other, because if you got 30 games, even though there might have been 100 released, you don't want to look through 30 games. That's not the
Course.
point. It's
Well, then
searching less.
it'd be self-defeating, wouldn't it? The idea of you coming to Indieformer to look for a curated list of something accessible, then being faced with essentially the same problem as going on a storefront. You know that.
Exactly. No, look,
Yeah.
having done it in the past, people don't want a top 30. People want a top 30 for maybe the year, but they don't
Mm.
want a top 30 every month. It's like you want like a top 5 to 10 at most because then you know that's been looked at and it's been culled and it's been yeah.
Been through a process, right? Which makes sense.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that I think in terms of perhaps now like flipping the script somewhat, looking at this idea of perhaps you've exposed yourself to a lot of developers and publishers' processes and how
Mm.
they present their games across their socials, their press kits, their press releases, and if indeed how they then actually market their games across social media and on Steam, etc. And have you found sort of given I suppose the volume of titles and publishers and developers you've now exposed yourself to, are there sort of easy wins that developers could be making in terms of how they present their games and stuff perhaps you'd like to see in a press kit or the way that they handle distributing information? Are there sort of easy wins or perhaps even things these devs should be avoiding in order to cut through the noise and help with their own discoverability?
It's really hard discoverability. That's the whole point, I guess, of Indieformer. It's to kind of shine light on the games that aren't getting quite enough. And
Hmm,
because I guess if you're getting enough, then you're kind of doing the right things.
right.
And I guess like any creative endeavor, it also comes down to what your resources are. A lot of people, the mindset has been like, if you've got a camera, you got a microphone, if you've got a phone, you've got enough to make content,
Yeah.
right? But that's not quite right, in my opinion. If you do want to cut through the noise, you do need to invest. Like at some point, these endeavors do cost,
Hmm.
whether it's in equipment or whether it's in ads, whether it's in reaching certain newsletters, like getting creative with it. Like a lot of people are kind of going with an expectation of as long as I'm consistent enough and as long as my game is good, then it'll reach the right audience. And yeah, it will. It might not reach them. It might not reach the amount of people you're hoping to, but it'll reach an audience. And I think that's kind of where a lot of people in the creative industries kind of get stuck. They're not willing to put capital behind their project,
Hmm.
whether they don't believe in it, they don't have it, or they think that, I'll find the audience because it's good. And it's like, you know what, that can happen. I'm not saying it can't. I've seen it happen. People blow up, but yeah, fine. But relying on that is not a business. And if you're going to go in to sell a game and make money from it, if you're going to make money, you got to spend money. It's pretty simple. That's like as old as the Bible, that saying. And like, look, that's one piece of advice. Look at ads, look at newsletters, look at places, look at outlets where you can get coverage of your game. But the very simple thing is people will either just do that and then not post about it or do the other way around.
Right.
They're not doing both. So it's like it's a multi-pronged attack where today I'm seeing people people are really interested in following the story. Like people are not buying games anymore. They're buying stories. They're buying developers. They're buying
Hmm.
like that connection to, oh, I remember when it was at this part of the development and I saw him post, every day on this and I actually responded once and he changed this or whatever it is. People
Absolutely.
want to be a part of that journey. I'm seeing more and more and more. It's not about releasing a perfect game. It's just about releasing something that is connecting with people.
Yeah. Well, look at the
And
prevalence of Kickstarter and how that's now
yeah,
become, especially in the gaming space. You see some of the most successful, the success stories on there. Some of them
yeah,
have ballooned well beyond the scope of what those projects would have been if they had only met their initial funding goal. So
yeah.
there's clearly an appetite for people to get involved with that process.
For sure. And like even speaking on Kickstarter, a lot of games that are coming there are done. Like they
Mm,
don't need a lot of the funding that they're getting. They're going, we're pretty much ready to go. Let's put it on here. A lot of Kickstarter games are kind of coming out now where they're ready to go. They just need some, like a little bit of a kick to the end, but they're coming out like they're going, oh, we need this extra money to kind of launch in 3 months. It's like, yeah, okay, so you're pretty much there. And there's a hard competition. Like if you're going in there
mhm.
with an idea on Kickstarter, ready to like fund an idea, that's so much harder because a lot of projects now are being already developed. Like they're already a long way down the pipeline. Maybe they'll be a year away, but they've got something to show. And when
Yeah,
you are going to that point, asking for people to put their money behind stuff, you have to have something to show. And you have to be real brutal with yourself whether you'd put money behind it. Like it's not
for
just
sure.
some passion project, not just some like it's an idea, it's got legs, and like testing that with audiences. And that's what social media is for. Test the idea. Test your ideas for your game. Don't just keep it closed doors. Like this is what I'm doing. Ask for feedback. Get polls. Like you're making it for people at the end of the day. Even though you kind of start creative endeavors for yourself, you do share them because there are other people that are like you that can give you feedback that can make the
Mhm.
project better. That's the whole point. Like that's the whole point of social media is to be social. Like
For sure.
get the feedback, use
Yeah,
it.
and actually that is a good point too, especially relating to Kickstarter when you've got a small indie team putting up a title there. The ones I've seen that have really cut through the noise are the ones that are showing clear examples of even if it's just a vertical slice, they're showing polished, proof of concepts that aren't
Yeah,
just here's my concept art, trust me, it's going to be great. They're
yeah,
they're making sure that they're actually putting some tangible work in prior, and then like you said, it's sort of almost like we need this last 18 months just to get over the line. That's what this funding is, or it might be to
yeah,
do with distribution and localization. It just they don't have the infrastructure of a big publisher to support with that. And
yeah,
they're the games I'm seeing that seem to be doing well, that seem to be going well above their funding goal and really
yeah.
blowing up on Kickstarter. Because like Elusive, I saw a platformer recently on there that just which
Hmm.
I backed, and actually ironically discovered it through Indieformer, was something that I was really like surprised to see how well that then has now obviously, they've blown through all of their stretch goals, they've done really well. But then
Yeah,
I properly looked at their pitch video, and it was so much of it was just raw gameplay with commentary. And that's
yeah.
something which again, if people can just they see it, it's tangible, it's a possibility and not just a trust me, please. We used to work at EA or something like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
something where they've got to put that viability behind it and that believability.
Yeah, people want to know, like especially on Kickstarter, like even me, I want to know that you can do the work, not just talk
Yeah.
about the idea. It's like, what does that actually look like in execution? Like if I'm going to put my money behind it, what's it going to look like? That's at the end of the day, you're essentially pre-ordering a game. If I
Mhm.
can't see what the game looks like, it's probably not going to go well in the campaign. And I know you also said before press kits, what can people be doing?
Yeah.
There's having like since I make like custom thumbnails for the art every month for Indieformer, a very specific one for me is like have your key art, have textless key art, clean without a
Mhm.
logo on it, because creators want to use that in every which way for vertical or horizontal or whatever. Have that logo separate, but then also try and provide the fonts if possible. I know fonts can get a little bit wacky, or even just the names of the fonts because people have access to Adobe or ways to download it themselves, just so that like for someone like me, I'm trying to like replicate their key art but in indie like with Indieform wording. So it's like if you can create an editable PSD, like that is god tier level. Let me just log in, change the text, okay, easy done. I've literally spent 2 or 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours sitting there trying to match the key art with font and effects and
Oh
stuff so
man.
that it looks And like, look, that's just me trying to like put a little bit of work in so it looks good over time. But if you can provide that in your press kits and you've got the material, like you've already made it,
Mm.
just make it available for creators to do it in 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's not like something
So
that's going to create a huge amount of additional workload for developers. That if you've already made it, it's
yeah,
just a
exactly,
case
it's
of
already
loading it into
there.
your press kit and making it public.
Exactly. Like one of the like that stuff is gold, GIFs, gold, screenshots and videos people always do already, so that's not much of a problem. But like that small stuff, like having a file to be able to edit saves me so much time.
Nice. Well, that's something
Yeah,
again I think is really important for creators to hear as well, because I know that this will
yeah,
be going out. We're going to be sharing it across our platforms, and it's
yeah,
nice, I think, for the audience and the kind of people that would be looking at Indieformer, and a lot of them will be probably in the development community. It's nice
yeah.
to have that message sort of put out there. It's really important. Well, look, Josh, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you jumping on with me. I kind of wanted to wrap out our podcast today just by kind of perhaps just planting a flag, looking ahead. Obviously, Indieformer has gone through a couple of evolutions over the course of
Yeah,
its life cycle as the brand has now kind of resurged and come back to where it is now as a newsletter. Is
yeah.
there anything that you can tease that's coming up, anything, or is it a case of just now continuing to build that community in its current format?
There is definitely stuff that I'm working on. Like the newsletter is and always was going to be that starting point to have a good base and just be that thing that always you fall back onto. Like that's what Indieformer is always going to be. Like it'll
Nice.
always be in your inbox. It'll always be there. But discoverability can go further than that. Like I'm building a website at the moment, a project called Waypoint, which is essentially going to be an interactive calendar that's going to
Right.
kind of have a history and an archive of all Indieformer recommended games. So if you ever want to find a game via early access, via a hidden gem, via a showcase, you know that that site is going to be all games that were curated by me or by Indieformer. You can see it released month to month. You can go and look at it through different, I guess, tags or categories.
Mm.
Eventually, we want to have it linked with Steam profile, so you could wishlist through there or even search through Steam
That's
tags
cool.
as
So to have a
well.
proper integration with that, that's really cool.
And then, yeah, and so then you could also look ahead to see what is coming out and what is like on our radar as well, with, custom little descriptions by us. And then you can hover over it, watch the trailer. And then eventually, the idea is to have that site. You've got games that you've kind of picked, and then each month you would get a custom newsletter that's got an Indieformer style newsletter to you, but it's all personalized games that you'd already flagged as being interested in.
Nice.
So that way you've kind of got your own personal Indieformer newsletter, but with games that only you want to see. And then there always, like I said, there'll always be that fallback of here's what we pick. But I think that kind of personalization of good games. So you're already cut through the noise. The whole website and project is just
Mm.
about you can whatever you want to search for. You know that the recommendation's good and it's been vetted. And just have to go through SteamDB and click on your category and go, okay, what are all the roguelikes here? Which one's good? Which one's bad? We've got rid of that question, or everything here we know is what we'd recommend. So any roguelike that you've got here, you can pretty much play and just pick whichever one sounds the most interesting.
Nice. That's really cool.
So that's being worked on. It's very, very close to being released and coming out in some kind of early form. So that's really good. And if we're talking like big picture,
Mm.
I'd love Indieformer to be a publisher. I think that's really cool, or even create our own game. What I don't know. It's just the idea of just like, yeah, I can see it being evolving into that. I want to get back into videos. I'd like to expand it. I'd like to be able to support people in like their gaming endeavors, whether that be through writing or through video creation or actually making a game, whatever it is. I think Indieformer's kind of got that space, and I think I've got that leadership and vision to be able to provide that. It's a long, long way away, especially when it's kind of this side project that's kind of working on its own. But it would be very cool. And I'm sure many people across the world share a very similar vision for their own businesses or whatever. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
I can't pretend that there's not a huge amount of what you just said there that definitely resonated with me. So,
yeah.
yeah, 100%. Well, listen, Josh, thank you again so much for giving up your time. We really do appreciate you
Oh,
jumping
my
onto the
pleasure.
call. It's been lovely chatting to you, folks. You can find us on all of the things at Burly Bird Media, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Spotify, YouTube, etc., etc. So please do consider jumping on and checking that out there. We post new episodes of our various podcasts and shows every single Monday on our YouTube channel, available for free as well via Podbean and Spotify. Josh, where can people find you?
Indieformer.com. That's the simplest place. That's where the newsletter is. Even if you just Google search Indieformer, you'll find us. Threads, Blue Sky. Don't post much on X, but we're over there. But the place to be is on the newsletter, Indieformer.com. You'll get what we have to say through there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Josh. And folks, we will see you next time.